Can you actually figure out what you want to do with your life and plan for early retirement all while slogging through the 9 to 5? Of course. Today I'm going to review a book that outlines how one family did just that. Welcome back to Fix the Game. I'm Steph, and here we talk about how paying attention to your money, getting out of the rat race, and pursuing your passions can help you live your very best life. In today's video, we're going to review this book right here, Meet the Frugalwoods, Achieving Financial Independence Through Simple Living, written by Mrs. Frugalwoods herself, Elizabeth Willard Thames. I'm going to start by summarizing the book, then I'll get into the things I really liked, the important lessons learned, and the things I think she could have done better. So to start, this book, which I would recommend you think of more as a memoir or an autobiography than a how-to, tells the more in-depth story of what's presented on the Frugalwoods blog, also written by Liz. Overall, this is a book about how a couple in their early 30s managed to quit their jobs in the city, move to a homestead in rural Vermont, and work part-time while raising a family. And yes, they are still working, although this is often billed as a book about early retirement. The book follows their journey to trying and failing to find happiness by living the life they think they should live. To start, they graduate college and find themselves in low-paying entry-level jobs. Gradually, they climb the corporate ladder, but slowly they realize that none of the things that they thought would bring them happiness truly are. The book takes us through a few of the key decisions that led them on the path to financial independence. When they were 30 years old, in 2014, they decided to dig deep into their financial situation and make a plan to escape the rat race. They ended up crafting a 3.5-year plan that would see them leaving their corporate jobs and pursuing their dream life in rural Vermont. She takes us through the general process of implementing that plan and gives us a few tips along the way about frugal living. So let's jump right into what I really liked about this book. I found it a quick and easy read, and I liked the humor that was scattered throughout the book, and I thought it was thought-provoking, and it helped me to think a little bit more outside the box about how I can accelerate my current 10-year early retirement plan down to something that could happen a little bit sooner. The thing I liked most about this book was how relatable it felt. I've had many of the same experiences that they've had and share many of their perspectives. I will say right here though, that they are definitely approaching their story from a white, upper middle class, heterosexual perspective, and if your life experiences have been very different from that, you might struggle a little bit more to enjoy this. She does a pretty good job of acknowledging her privilege at various points throughout the book, but if that isn't something that you can relate to, this could definitely be a more difficult read. I found a lot of similarities between their lives and mine. Like them, when I graduated university, I set out on the trajectory of all the things I thought I should do in order to achieve happiness, and since then have been questioning whether any of those things are truly bringing me any happiness at all. Since then, I've done a lot of the same things that they did, like climbing the corporate ladder, buying a house, getting married, and questioning the utility of it all along the way. I also know that I can find happiness in some of the same ways that they do. One of Liz's greatest escapes from the 9 to 5 is hiking in the woods, something that I also love. Liz found that hiking was a great escape from the 9 to 5 and played a big part in their plans to retire in rural Vermont on a homestead with a lot of property. I also really love the outdoors, and that'll be a big part of my early retirement plans as well. I think that point of relatability is another reason why I really liked this book. I'm really interested in reading stories of people who managed to leave the urban 9 to 5 behind and pursue financial independence and early retirement in the countryside where they can spend their time outside. If your early retirement plans are drastically different from theirs, it may impact how relatable you find this book. But I am really interested in knowing in the comments down below whether you follow the Frugalwoods and whether your early retirement plans are similar to theirs or not, and how that impacts how much you enjoy their writing. Finally, while I would not characterize this book as a how-to on frugality and simple living, it does provide a good number of tips on how to implement frugality in your day-to-day life. And in particular, there's quite a bit of useful detail on how to remain frugal while preparing for a baby and raising a young family. One of the most frequently asked questions I receive when I talk to folks about my plans for early retirement is, how will you do it with kids? So it's really great to see someone who's actually implementing that. And finally, there are a couple of things that I think this book could have done better. The first is around financial detail. So I totally understand that the author would like to maintain a certain degree of privacy and doesn't want all of her financial business out there in the world. However, it would have really helped me to know a little bit more about their financial planning process. So for example, when she says that her and her husband sat down at a coffee shop one day and devised a 3.5-year plan to financial independence, I would have liked to know a lot more about what that actually looked like. So finally, the last thing that I think could have been portrayed a little bit better in this book is the concept of privilege. So I think anybody who's in a position to be pursuing financial independence and discussing it in a public forum has a certain amount of responsibility to acknowledge their privilege and acknowledge how they got to where they are, and to recognize that it's not necessarily feasible for everyone to do what they have done. So the author does acknowledge her privilege at various points throughout the book and has obviously made a concerted effort to do so, but for me it doesn't go quite deep enough. To use one example, there is a section early in the book where she talks about having to move to New York to pursue a job and moving into a lower income neighborhood than she is used to living in. So she shares an honest perspective of her life in that neighborhood and during that time, but I don't think she does enough to describe the difference between self-imposed frugality and actual poverty. That is all for today's video. Thanks again so much for tuning in. Don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below whether you read Meet the Frugalwoods and what you thought of it.